The Buddha once described the untrained mind as a fish pulled from water and thrown onto dry land, flopping, trembling, unable to be still. That image is 2,500 years old, and it describes exactly what it feels like to lie awake at 3 in the morning while your mind moves from one anxious thought to the next without your permission. What's remarkable is that the same tradition that offered that observation also spent thousands of years developing an answer, not a suppression of thought, not a spiritual bypass around the difficulty of being human, but a genuine, practiced, tested understanding of how the mind works and what it needs to finally find rest. This is Mindfulness, and in this video, we're going to explore 10 of those answers together, each one rooted in authentic Buddhist teaching, each one pointing toward what the tradition calls no mind. We'll cover why the mind talks constantly and what it's actually trying to do, why silence can feel threatening at first, what non-grasping really means in daily life, and how impermanence, understood deeply, becomes a source of relief rather than sadness. 10 secrets, 1 direction, rest. 1. The burden you were never meant to carry. Most people walk through life believing they are responsible for every thought that enters their mind. If a dark thought appears, they feel ashamed. If a worried thought loops, they feel weak. If their mind races at 2 in the morning, they feel like something is wrong with them. But here's what the early Buddhist teachings actually say. The mind, by its very nature, produces thoughts the way the sky produces clouds, automatically, continuously, without your permission and without your control. The Pali Canon, one of the oldest surviving records of Buddhist teaching, describes the untrained mind as something that wanders. It uses the word citta, which refers to the heart-mind, and describes its natural tendency to move, to seek, to grasp. This wasn't presented as a flaw, it was presented as a starting observation. This is what the mind does. Now, what will you do about it? The weight most people carry isn't the thoughts themselves. It's the belief that they are personally responsible for stopping them, that if they were calmer, wiser, more disciplined, the thoughts would go away. They won't, and they don't need to. What Buddhist practice offers isn't a silent mind. It offers a different relationship with the noise, one where you are no longer crushed by it. That shift alone is the beginning of real rest. 2. What no mind actually means. The term gets misunderstood constantly. People hear no mind and imagine a blank, empty, switched-off state, something close to sleep or numbness or the absence of thought entirely. That's not what it means. In Buddhist understanding, particularly within the traditions rooted in early Zen and Chan Buddhism, no mind refers to a mind that is not clinging, not a mind with nothing in it, but a mind that holds nothing too tightly, a mind that lets things pass through without grabbing onto them, without building stories around them, without turning a single thought into an entire identity. Think of a clear pool of water. When something falls into it, there's a ripple. That's natural. But the water doesn't chase the ripple. It doesn't replay the ripple. It doesn't worry about the next ripple. It simply returns to stillness because stillness is its nature. Your mind has that same nature. Underneath all the movement, underneath all the noise, there is a baseline of awareness that is already quiet, already still, already at rest. No mind isn't something you achieve by adding more techniques to your life. It's what remains when you stop fighting what's already there. The Buddhist path toward no mind isn't about becoming something new. It's about recognizing what you've always been beneath the noise. 3. The thinking trap. There is a particular habit the untrained mind falls into that Buddhism identified long before modern psychology had a name for it. The habit of treating every thought as something that requires a response. A thought appears, and instead of letting it pass, the mind grabs it, examines it, argues with it, follows it down a corridor of related thoughts. And suddenly, you're not here anymore. You're lost in a story that began with a single automatic thought you didn't even choose to have. The Buddhist term for this is papañca. It refers to the proliferation of thought, the way the mind takes a simple perception and expands it into an elaborate construction. One observation becomes a judgment. One judgment becomes a narrative. One narrative becomes a belief about yourself or the world. The Buddha spoke about papañca in the Madhupindika Sutta, describing how sense contact leads to perception, perception leads to thought, and thought, when the mind is untrained, leads to this uncontrolled proliferation that pulls a person further and further from direct experience. And here's what makes it a trap. The mind that's caught in papañca believes it's solving something. It feels productive, it feels necessary, but most of the time it's just spinning, creating complexity where there was only a simple moment. Noticing this trap is the beginning of stepping out of it. 4. Breath as the bridge. Every major school of Buddhism, regardless of tradition, language, or cultural background, returns to one practice: watching the breath. This isn't coincidence. It isn't simplicity for beginners. There is a specific reason breath sits at the center of Buddhist mind training, and understanding that reason changes the way you practice it. The breath is the one thing in your experience that is simultaneously automatic and available to conscious attention. You don't have to control it. It breathes whether you watch it or not. But the moment you place your attention on it, you are here, in this body, in this moment, not in yesterday's conversation or tomorrow's to-do list. This is what the Anapanasati Sutta, the discourse on mindfulness of breathing, describes in detail. The Buddha taught that by simply attending to the breath, the mind begins to settle. Not by force, not by concentration as effort, but by the natural settling that happens when attention stops wandering and rests on something real. The breath is always now. You cannot breathe tomorrow's breath. You cannot hold yesterday's. There is only this one, arriving and leaving, arriving and leaving. Every time you return to it after the mind has wandered, something subtle is trained. The muscle of returning, and that muscle is exactly what no mind requires. 5. The watcher who was always there. Here is something you may have never been told directly. In Buddhist understanding, there is a dimension of your mind that has never been disturbed, not by your worst day, not by your loudest thoughts, not by any of the storms you've lived through. It is sometimes referred to as awareness itself, not the awareness of something, just the bare capacity to know, to notice, to be present. This isn't a mystical claim. It's an observation you can verify right now. Right now, there are thoughts in your mind, perhaps reactions to what you're hearing, doubts, agreements, wanderings. Notice that you are aware of them. That awareness, the part that notices the thoughts, is not the same as the thoughts themselves. The Pali tradition uses the word sampajanya to refer to this quality of clear comprehension, a knowing that is present and undisturbed even while things are happening. It's not detachment in the sense of not caring. It's more like the space in which everything occurs, which is itself untouched by what occurs within it. When you begin to recognize this watcher, this quiet awareness underneath the noise, something stabilizes. You still have difficult thoughts, you still feel emotions, but there is now a place in you that isn't knocked over by them. That place was always there. You just hadn't been introduced yet. 6. Why silence feels uncomfortable. If stillness is our natural state, why does it feel so uncomfortable when we first try to sit quietly? This is one of the most honest questions a person can ask, and Buddhism answers it directly. The Pali word dukkha is often translated as suffering, but a more precise translation is unease or unsatisfactoriness. The Buddha's first teaching described dukkha as a fundamental characteristic of ordinary experience, and one of its expressions is this: the mind conditioned to constant stimulation finds stillness not peaceful but threatening, because in the silence, what's been avoided starts to surface. The grief that was kept busy, the anxiety that was managed with distraction, the questions that were never allowed to settle. When the noise stops, these things rise. Most people interpret this as proof that stillness is dangerous. It's actually proof that it's working. Buddhism doesn't teach that we should avoid what surfaces in silence. It teaches that the practice of sitting with discomfort, without running from it and without drowning in it, is itself the training. The Salatha Sutta describes two kinds of pain: the original sensation and the suffering we add to it through reaction. One is unavoidable, the other is where practice lives. The discomfort of silence isn't the enemy of rest. It's the doorway into it. Every time you stay just a little longer with the discomfort, the doorway opens wider. 7. The secret of non-grasping. There is a teaching in Buddhism that sounds simple until you sit with it long enough to understand how completely it changes everything. It is the teaching on upadana, which means clinging or grasping. The Buddha identified clinging as one of the central causes of mental suffering, not the circumstances of your life, not what happens to you, but the way the mind wraps itself around things and refuses to let go. And here's what's rarely explained clearly. Grasping doesn't only apply to things you want, it also applies to things you don't want. The mind can cling to its own suffering. It can cling to its worries, its grievances, its identity as someone who has been wronged or who is fundamentally flawed. This is still grasping. It just feels like the opposite. The mind that is always grasping is always exhausted, because grasping requires constant effort. You have to maintain the grip. You have to keep reinforcing the story. You have to keep defending the position. And none of that ever ends, because there is always something new to grab onto, always something to protect, always something to resist. Non-grasping is not indifference. This distinction matters enormously. You can care deeply about your life, your relationships, your work, your growth, without clenching your fist around the outcome. You can hold things the way you hold water in an open palm. Present, attentive, not squeezing. The Majjhima Nikaya contains numerous passages where the Buddha describes the mind of a practitioner who has loosened the grip of clinging. What he describes isn't emptiness or apathy. He describes a kind of freedom in engagement, doing everything fully but not being trapped by any of it. When you practice non-grasping in small moments throughout the day, something cumulative happens. The mind that spent enormous energy holding on slowly learns that it doesn't need to. And in that release, there is a rest so deep that no amount of sleep produces it. This is the secret that lives at the heart of no mind, not forcing the mind to stop, releasing the grip one thought at a time until what remains is the open hand. And in the open hand, everything rests. 8. Impermanence is not a sad truth. One of the most misunderstood teachings in all of Buddhism is the teaching on impermanence, anicca in Pali. Most people hear it as a sad truth. Everything ends, nothing lasts, a kind of beautiful melancholy, something to accept with a sigh. But that is only the surface of what the teaching points toward. Go deeper, and impermanence is not a source of sadness, it is a source of radical relief. Here's why. The thought that is tormenting you right now, it will not last. Not because you successfully suppressed it, but because nothing lasts. Thoughts arise, they peak, they pass. This is not a coping mechanism or a consolation. It is the observed nature of all mental phenomena, described with precision in the Abhidhamma, the Buddhist analytical texts, which break down consciousness into momentary arisings, each one distinct, each one passing away almost as soon as it appears. What this means in practice is extraordinary. You do not need to resolve every difficult thought. You do not need to figure out every problem your mind presents to you. You do not need to understand why a particular feeling arrived or when it will leave. You only need to notice that it is already moving, already changing, already less solid than it seemed a moment ago. The mind that grasps at thoughts believes they are permanent fixtures. It treats a mood as a character trait. It treats a moment of anxiety as a life sentence. It treats a single difficult day as evidence about who you fundamentally are. Impermanence dissolves this, not by argument but by direct observation. Sit long enough and you will see the thoughts change. You will see the emotions shift. You will see that nothing your mind produces has the permanence your mind insists it has. And here's what becomes available when you really understand this. You stop trying to hold on to the good states and stop trying to push away the difficult ones. Both are movements of grasping. Both exhaust the mind. When you can watch both with equal steadiness, something extraordinary opens. The mind rests not because the content has become pleasant, but because the relationship to the content has transformed. This is one of the deepest expressions of no mind available to an ordinary person living an ordinary life. You don't need a monastery. You don't need hours of meditation each day. You need this understanding carried into your moments, your commute, your kitchen, your difficult conversations. Everything passes, including this. And in that passing, there is peace. 9. The art of doing without forcing. There is a quality that emerges naturally in deepened Buddhist practice that is difficult to describe in Western terms, but once you encounter it, you recognize it instantly. It is the quality of doing things fully while being entirely at ease. Not the ease of someone who doesn't care, but the ease of someone who is no longer fighting the moment they are in. In Chan and early Zen-influenced Buddhist traditions, there are references to a natural, effortless mode of being, sometimes described as acting in accordance with things as they are, without imposing what you think they should be. This isn't passivity. It isn't giving up. It's the complete opposite of forcing. Most people live in a state of constant internal argument with the present moment. It should be different. It should be easier. I should be further along. The situation should have gone another way. This argument is so constant and so automatic that it doesn't feel like an argument anymore. It just feels like thinking. But it is exhausting the mind continuously, using enormous energy to resist what is simply already here. The Dhammapada, one of the most widely studied texts in the Theravada canon, opens with the observation that the mind is the forerunner of all actions. What the mind dwells on shapes everything that follows. A mind dwelling in resistance shapes a life of friction. A mind that has learned to meet the moment without that internal argument that shapes something entirely different. Practically, this teaching shows up in very small ways. You're washing dishes and you notice the mind is somewhere else, planning, worrying, composing things. What would it mean to just wash the dishes? Not as a meditation exercise, not as a performance of mindfulness, but simply as a person who is here, now, doing this one thing. The mind that can do that can be fully present with an ordinary task without needing it to be something else, that mind has found something most people search for in extraordinary experiences. No mind isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's the mind that washes the dish and finds that enough. The mind that sits in the ordinary moment and doesn't need it to be different. And the extraordinary thing is that when you stop needing moments to be different, they start becoming something you couldn't have predicted, richer, more vivid, more alive. Not because they changed, because you stopped being somewhere else while they happened. This is the art at the center of Buddhist practice, not achieving great states, not accumulating insights, simply being where you are, doing what you're doing, without the constant overlay of what should be, and discovering that what is, when you finally meet it directly, is more than enough. 10. Returning home. Everything in this script has pointed toward one thing, not a technique, not a philosophy, a return. The Buddhist understanding of the mind is not that it is fundamentally broken and needs to be fixed. It is that the mind's true nature, what the Pali tradition calls citta in its undisturbed state, is already luminous, already aware, already capable of rest. The Anguttara Nikaya contains a passage where the Buddha describes the mind as luminous, but it is defiled by adventitious defilements. The word adventitious is important. It means the defilements are not intrinsic, they arrived, which means they can depart. The noise in your head is not who you are. The worry, the replaying, the endless commentary, these are not your identity. They are weather, and you are not the weather. You are the sky in which the weather moves. This has been pointed to across thousands of years of Buddhist practice. In monasteries and forest hermitages, in lay practice and dedicated retreats, ordinary human beings have sat with their minds and discovered the same thing. That underneath the noise, there is a quality of awareness that is unshaken, that does not need anything to be different. That is, in the oldest and simplest sense of the word, at peace. You don't have to earn that peace. You don't have to think your way there. You don't have to silence every thought, resolve every doubt, understand every teaching. You only have to begin, And beginning simply means noticing, right now, whatever is here. The sound of this voice, the rise of a breath, the quiet that exists even while the mind is talking. That quiet is yours. It has always been yours. This is the path that Buddhism has preserved across centuries, not as a religion to believe in, but as a practice to live. And the living of it begins exactly where you are, in this moment, in this breath, in this return to the stillness that never left. If something in this reached you, you don't need to fully understand it right now. Let it settle. The mind that is learning to rest doesn't need to grasp at every insight the moment it arrives. Come back to these ideas. Sit with them. Practice them in the small moments of your day. If this is the kind of content that serves you, subscribing means more of it finds its way to you. And if one of these teachings opens something, share it with someone who might need it. The silence you're looking for isn't somewhere else. It's already here, waiting beneath the noise, patient as breath itself.